We have a pretty full agenda. We'll have Ben Nicholls come in at 11:30 via Zoom to provide an update of where we are this fire season. But in the meantime, I'll go around and select people that are on the screen and those that are in the room to be able to share essentially who they work with, what are some of the key projects they're working on, or an update that they feel is relevant to this group. So with that, maybe I'll ask Judy to give us start us off today.
Okay, unfortunately, I'm gonna have to leave at 11:30 and I won't be able to hear Ben, but I think we got a good overview from Marshall out in Timber Cove. We're very busy right now. We're finishing phase 1 of our CAL FIRE grant. We have 2 more phases. It's completion date is March 15, 2026. So we're doing good. We are just extremely grateful for the vegetation management grant that we just received, and that's a match for the CAL FIRE grant. It's for another major access road off of one of our ranches that leads out to Fort Ross Road that was also funded by the vegetation management grant program. So we have that. And because this is a match for CAL FIRE, we've already for Brainbridge, the vegetation management grant, we've already done the pre-planning. We've got the project layout. It's under our CEQA compliance, which will be doing a forest fire prevention exemption. So that's going on. We're putting in an NCRP grant for approximately 500 acres of pine plantations that were planted throughout that region. Phase 1 is going to be about 125 acres. We had a community meeting on Monday, which was great and wonderful. People are on board. So we have those 3 grant projects going on right now, 2 grant projects and 1 grant proposal. One thing I did want to mention to the group was that we put in a forest health grant. This last round of funding, we did not get it. And I was at an NCRP meeting in Weaverville, and the CAL FIRE forest health person was there. I spoke with her. As a result, we got the forest health person to come and talk at one of our community meetings. And as a result of that, in the after hours, in the bar afterwards, we got her support to review our forest health proposal that we will be resubmitting again in the fall. So having her on board, the person I met at NCRP happened to be the woman who signed our rejection letter, the forester. So building up those relationships, I think, will help us. There were 3 proposals submitted in the LNU, CAL FIRE LNU, Lake Napa Sonoma unit. None of them got funded. One was in Angwin. They have their CEQA already completed. One was Marshall's Fire District in Geyserville and us. So that was what I spoke with this woman about at NCRP was, I know we don't have the population as they do elsewhere. What can we do? How can we work with you? How can we bring some money out to Sonoma County for forest health? Yeah. I did hear from her that CAL FIRE money would be available through 2029. There'll be some reductions in that. So that was helpful. But what I really wanted to just bring up right now, and we can talk about this later. I go to the NCRP quarterly meetings. I went to the last one in Weaverville, and mainly because they're talking about the forest health pilot project. Grant program that is now open for solicitation. And so I've been going, and we've been working with NCRP for about a year talking about this project that we're putting in. But what I noticed is that for those of you who aren't familiar with the North Coast Resource Partnership, it's all the northern counties. They have a board of supervisor represented from each county at on the leadership council. Also, they have a real solid tribal representation on that council. And the chair of that council is James Gore, our supervisor here. I forgot what district he's. District 4. District 4. Here, he's the chair. And I tried to talk to him the last time, but once lunch came out, he's bombarded. But what I wanted to suggest, they have presenters at these quarterly meetings from the private sector, from the tribes, from CAL FIRE, fire services. I really think that two things. One, I would love to invite James Ford to one of our forest working group meetings so that he can see what we're doing right here in Sonoma County.
Yeah.
And take that back to NCRP, but also, I'm gonna put you on the hot seat right now, Kim. I would love to see you present there about the forest working group.
Yeah.
Because I've attended the last 3 meetings and there is nobody doing, or at least there is nobody talking about doing what we're doing right here in Sonoma County.
Yeah.
And, through the forest working group, what you're doing with Adriana, going out there and meeting with community groups to help them, organize their projects and their proposals, all of the wonderful things that the settlement, vegetation management money has done throughout this county. I think it would really be valuable for the other northern counties to see what we're doing here. And also, before doing that, inviting James Ford as a NCRP representative,
Yeah.
in addition to him being our supervisor,
Yeah.
come to one of our meetings.
Yeah.
And listen to the check-in with, what are these people doing here in his county?
Right.
There's another meeting coming up, and then there's one, I'm not going to that one, but I'll be going to the last one of the year. I enjoy going to those meetings because I hear what everybody else is doing.
Yeah, right.
Throughout the North Coast.
Yep.
And everybody's doing great things.
Yeah.
But so are we.
Yeah. All right. Well,
That's my
that was,
check-in.
thank you, Judy. Let's go to Jill Butler. Jill, are you with us? Do you want to give your update?
She might be on mute.
Yeah, I see that. Let's go to Fred Ufrat.
While Fred's getting unmuted, I would like to also announce that Fred just joined our board of directors of the Coast Ridge Forest Council. That's great.
That's
Welcome,
right.
Fred.
Start video. Wait, I'm here.
You are here.
How come there's one button for mute and another damn button for unmute? Okay. Let's see. I'm excited to be on the Coast Ridges Community Forest Board of Directors. It's very exciting, and it's now another board of directors of things that I'm on. I have I'm engaging with TALS, T-A-L-S, which is the group that Dee has been forming using Robert Ewing and the other folks from around the country to try and create a sort of a meta community forest. It's reaches across states, and they're looking for a project on the order of 61,000 acres, as I'm suggesting, but tens to hundreds of thousands of acres for Sonoma County and adjacent counties. So I'll be working with them on identifying those projects, and then we'll be coming back to y'all to see if we can get some ratification. And also I've been working with this kind of interesting Edge Esmeralda. Has anybody heard of that?
No.
No, nobody's heard of it. It's like all a month-long gathering, building the future, a pop-up village in Healdsburg, the first step towards permanent life in the future. And it's all these high-tech folks and the urban tech community that we don't really engage with, but they're here to learn about the forest, biochar, ways to live on and with the land. Their picture has a floating city, but I don't know if we're going to get that far. So we are on my property, we've dived in and we are giving them places to set up solar cabins in the woods. And so really trying to create a level of engagement with a group that we haven't engaged with before. And, you know, you look at the list and it's people from NVIDIA and Apple and big stuff. So I'm very excited about that and we'll see where it goes. So, yeah, Edge Esmeralda, look it up. It's a month-long powwow in Healdsburg. I think that's enough for now.
All right, thank you, Fred. Ann, would you like to go next?
Yep. I'm Ann Hamilton with Green Belt Alliance. I know some of you, Fred, hey, from the Bohemian Collaborative work with Safer West County. We have been in the job for less than a month. We are working on a Sonoma County wildfire buffer pilot in the Springs area. We're partnering with Ag and Open Space, Allison with the maps, and Sonoma Ecology Center. And I'm excited to sort of dive in. I know a little bit about the wildfire landscape, but we're going to be working in collaboration with folks up here, and I'm excited to learn more.
Great, thank you, Ann.
Yep.
And welcome to the team and
Thanks.
so forth. And so let's go to Jill Butler. Looks like you're back.
Yes, I apologize. I think I not only need a new monitor, I need a new trackball. But let's see, Jill Butler representing Guelph River Watershed Council. And the main news is that good people at Sonoma RCD finished the Guelph River Management Plan. Hooray! The final version of the plan and the action plan and the needs assessment and something else will be coming out soon, apparently. That included request for project proposals, which will be part of the plan. And if the people at the Bureau of Reclamation are sufficiently happy, there might be some implementation funding forthcoming. So all very exciting stuff for Guelph River watershed. One of the things the Watershed Council proposed was a round of public outreach workshops, which would be very similar to our forest stewardship workshops. And if all that gets off the ground, I'll be bugging some of you to help with presentations.
Okay, thank you, Jill. Appreciate the upload. And so let's go to Rose. Would you like to report out?
Yeah, let's see. We had a good event on June 9th in Guerneville. We had good attendance and Kim was there and gave a nice presentation. Adriana presented. We had a lot of other folks from Forest Working Group. And it was really nice to take some of the attendees to Armstrong Woods and see that side-by-side comparison of the areas that have been treated with prescribed fire and then the areas that haven't been treated yet. And I also got to be an observer at a Fire Forward fire on June 13th at the Boothbury Preserve and learned a lot and saw them working with grasslands and oak woodlands. So that was really exciting. Besides that, I'm chugging along, working on the Safer West County Defensible Space Rebate and Chipper Program. We still have rebates available for folks in Occidental, Camp Meeker, Monterey, and Forestville to get a rebate for improving their defensible space.
Nice.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you.
We just gathered our Occidental neighborhood together and said, hey, there's still money out there, you guys. So hopefully somebody, hopefully we'll get them on your program.
Nice. Good. No worries. Thank you. How about let's go to Brooke.
Good morning, everyone. Brooke Edwards, Sonoma County Regional Parks. And a few things to report on. We did find some funding for the Santa Rosa JC Wildfire Resilience Program. That was their internship program that was initially funded by the PG&E settlement funds. Very successful, had a lot of students go through there that came out with good skills in terms of fuels reduction, using chainsaws, prescribed fire. We've hired folks from that program as well as state parks and private contractors, as well as probably you all. And so that program ran out of funding. We were able to get some kind of gap funding for it right now to run a fall program. And that was actually through District 4, James Gore's district funding this fall semester. And then also help with his field rep, Chris Grable, very important. So that's back up and going this fall. The idea is to work on incorporating that program into the San Jose JC internship curriculum and infrastructure. Before, how it was run, it was kind of like a parallel program. It wasn't really integrated into the JC program. We've seen the great success, and so now what we're trying to do is integrate it into the program so that the JC can really parent this forward and kind of guide it. This fall, I'll also be helping manage the program as well. And so the idea is to run it this fall, develop all the materials we need to get it into the curriculum, and then hopefully have some sustained funding, ideally through the county somehow, of just the basic baseline program, and then bring in some grant funding to kind of build the program up. So important program back up on its feet. And so we'll be looking for interns, 12 interns and 2 instructors for this fall. Annie Madden and Asa Voigt will be teaching the class like usual. And so we're moving forward with that. So that was really great news. Yeah, and it sounds like Rose covered the ACR burn over at Bouverie. We did 30 acres over there, a grassland and woodland, 3 different units. And it's just great to work with ACR and see what a professional crew they have, the knowledge of prescribed fire, the use of it, and the fact that, we had 3 different units, and so we had to regroup and then start ignitions again, and that went really smoothly. So it's always a lot of fun. Always, I learn a lot on those burns as well. Due to the recent wildfires, Point Fire and other fires, CAL FIRE's crews have been sent out to those fires, and so their availability to do prescribed fires for parks and other groups is somewhat limited at this moment. So some of the fires that prescribed fires that we have scheduled have been postponed. Once CAL FIRE kind of gets their crews back into this region, hopefully we'll move forward with 120 acres at our Tole Ranch Park, and then also we have 12 acres lined up at Shiloh as well. So hopefully we can keep those on the calendar and get those done within the next month. And then also Regional Parks is hiring field assistants in our forestry and vegetation management program. So these are folks that will help lead the actual field technicians out in the field doing fuels reduction work, chainsaws, prescribed fire, as well as habitat mitigation and monitoring. We're also looking at a field assistant that will help with our wildlife program, and then also our invasive species program as well. So I'm going to post that flyer and job descriptions to our listserv to you all so you can see that. Please forward that on to anyone you think might be interested. That's it for me.
All right, thank you, Brooke. That's a very detailed update. We really appreciate all the work you've been involved with. We've had a couple of people sneak into the conference room. Dee Swanhauser, thank you for the treats. And I want this to know this is like the official welcome back to in-person meetings, because our tradition has always been that we rotate facilitation, we rotate planning and organizing the event, and then we organizing who actually brings treats to the monthly event. So we have treats in the room. If there's any incentive to start coming to the in-person sessions, you now know. Thank you, Dee, for that. Do you want to give a report out?
Yes, I do, and I wanted to say that, we're somewhere between 20 and 25 years old. This year.
Wow.
I did not look through my files, but, to get the exact date today, but, and that tradition, I think maybe you started that rotation and figured it out.
Yeah, right.
So that, and of course, I think when we first started, maybe Fred and I decided we had to have snacks. So we pretty much always had snacks.
Good priority.
So I'm probably not gonna stay for the whole meeting because I have, my husband isn't well, I have to go do different things, but I just needed to bring the snack.
Thank you.
And the little round guys are, vegan and gluten-free.
Oh,
So,
interesting.
and they're delicious.
Yeah, they are. All attached.
Take care of. So, yes, for taking action for living systems, Bob Ewing and Walter Kaiser and I are still working on the basic two things that we think need to be addressed because no one else is taking the lead. And we're very small, so the lead is very slow. But nonetheless, if someone else takes these two things on, woohoo! We'll go on to something else. But the first thing is to continue, and I know the district or the county is doing this is to look at the canopy. Look at the structure of all of the forest needs and how can that be, how can we weave that into the top so that everyone doesn't have to have an administration for grants, that everyone doesn't need an administration for administration. So everyone has more ability to do what they really want to be doing. And I know that the county is working on that, and I wish that we would have an update on that every month, if we possibly could, because that is a 2-year process, but to keep up on it would be really crucial. I don't know who that would be because I'm not engaged, but if you are, Kim, if you can take that on or someone, it would be really important. It's the overall climate planning group that I'm talking about, but it includes all of the needs that we have for our forests, I believe. And the second thing that we're doing,
Excuse me, Dee, what is the name of that group?
well, I wish I could remember, but it's like the Sonoma County Climate Resilience Planning Group or something.
Yeah,
like
it's called
that.
the Climate Action and
Oh.
Resilience Division is who's leading that charge. And they're focused on the climate action land strategy that was developed to think about how we adjust for climate change and how that impacts our conservation efforts and natural resources.
And that's a big part of the NCRP grant programs as well, so.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Well, it's climate action is such a big part of the NCRP grant programs as well. So it would be
Part
great.
of our lives.
Every-
We shouldn't be doing anything that doesn't relate directly, to
Looking at
helping
at
that.
adaptive management or
Right.
climate, yeah.
Right. And this idea came out of the Clee report, which was years ago, that the county had contracted with them to come up with these ideas. And so one of them is to find the way to manage this in a much more economic way. And then the second piece we work on, and we're working on this with Blue Forest and with Clee, to get private investments, capital investments, into the granting or into the funding mix, because the public funding has been fabulous. It is not forever. In fact, the projects aren't forever that they fund. And we're looking at how can we get something that is long-term that supports the public fund. I appreciate public funding, but you know what? We have some responsibilities and we have some investment groups, that could take this on. And so that's what we are also working on, how to get the private funding at the large scale. We are, working with Blue Forest. I don't know if everybody knows about Blue Forest.
I think
But I
a
think
lot
a
of
lot of
people do.
people do.
We can perhaps ask them to give a short presentation to this group.
I
Several of us
would
have
love
worked-
that, Anna,
Yep. And I,
Yep is now with them.
Yep.
Where she was with the county. And she would be more than glad to come and give us a brief presentation with a Q&A afterwards, because they need to be known more so that they can grow more.
right,
Right,
that's good.
so I really appreciate the perfect timing I had.
Yes, that was very perfect. Thank
Sorry
you,
to
Dee.
hear everybody else.
Yeah, we're bouncing in and out of in person and on the screen. So next up, I think, is Robert Aguero. And then shortly we'll have Ben start his presentation.
Oh, Ben's able to come.
Mhm.
Woohoo!
I know, right? Go ahead, Robert. And for Robert.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. I appreciate the enthusiasm. I'm not as exciting as Ben. I think the biggest update on our end, or at least for me at Permit Sonoma, is we are implementing and educating about the county's new tree and oak woodland ordinances. So we've been getting a lot of inquiries about those, meeting with a lot of potential applicants. We're seeing, well, really what the scale of unregulated oak woodland conversion was prior to these ordinances, based on the amount of questions and potential projects that we're seeing at this point. So it's good to be able to kind of have a finger on the pulse of that impact, that resource impact, and now that we have a new regulatory mechanism to protect that resource, feeling good about where we're at with it. So working on education material and implementation material that's being put out to applicants. So that's what we have.
All right, thank you, Robert, for all your work on that. That's huge. We really appreciate it. And then finally, Molly, would you like to report out on your work?
Hi, everybody. My name is Molly Curley O'Brien. I'm the Senior Community Resilience Planner at WRA. I actually don't have an update. I'm just here to say hello in person and eat snacks and listen and take it from there.
Fantastic. Thank you for joining.
We just met a WRA person out of the general funds, Janet.
My boss.
Oh, is that, oh, okay. Just connected with her again.
Are you Judy?
Yes.
Judy, nice to meet you.
Yes.
She's
Okay,
famous, Judy.
All right, so, and then finally, I'm sorry, Adriana, I forgot to ask you if you have an update.
No problem. I think I'll just pass it on to Ben Nicholls, or back to you, Kim.
Okay, good. And I will just, again, cede my time to the Honorable Ben Nicholls, who has, I think Point Fire is 70% contained. And so I'm wondering if you need to get out back on the fire line as soon as we finish here.
I appreciate that, Kim. No, things are looking much better up here than they were a couple days ago, and so we're grateful for that. A lot of hard work being done by the firefighters to make that happen, but the winds and weather definitely are giving us a little help today as we head into the weekend with the a warm up. So we want to make sure that we've consolidate our gains that we've gotten and hold on to that, with the idea that we don't know what this weekend looks like. So hollering at you from the Citrus Fair Fairgrounds, and bear with me, I was trying to update some slides over the last 24 hours, but not quite as polished as I'd like, but we'll go through it and basically answer any questions that you guys may have. So let me set up my screen here.
And Ben, thank you very much for taking the time out. It's been a busy week, so we really appreciate you being able to share your time with us.
You betcha.
And shout out to Ben for being the public face on this fire. You've looked good on all
I appreciate it. Okay, so let's do this. Except for I gotta do that. Okay, so let's go. Share.
Like I brought it, now I want some of it. Yeah, I just, I'm sorry, we're having a snack
Okay.
issue in here.
Can you guys see my screen?
Not yet.
Not yet. Let's see here. What am I doing? Oh, there we go. Looks like maybe yes.
Yes, we are. Thank you.
Okay. Slide presentation. Okay. A little rough, but bear with me here. So fire season outlook 2024. So I think this is probably the 5th outlook I've done this year. It's been a hot ask from the general crowds about what does fire season look like. And so up until this last weekend, I kept telling everybody that things were okay, and we were heading into fire season 2024 much better off than we have been in years prior. But as you are all well aware, we had that local wind event, and things changed up on us rapidly. So let's talk about what we have coming into fire season here. The screenshot on the left is the precipitation that we received in this last rain year. And so as it comes for moisture coming into the county, we did great. Over 100% up into the 120% range of average rainfall, which then of course took us over to the drought monitor. And as you can see, the state's not looked that good since 2019. So definitely a significant change in the moisture that came into the state. Unfortunately, with a robust rainfall year, that results in a robust grass crop. And so that is absolutely what we have been focused on coming into fire season here, about what that's going to look like once things cured out. So as we came in here, let me close my screen here because I'm losing some of my shots. There we go. As we came into fire season, well, for those of you that are familiar with the graphs put out by our predictive services folks, there's been a alteration of what those graphs look like this year. Same relative data, but more firefighter resistant, because we're very visual people and simple, so we need colors. And so in this case, green is good and red is bad. So the lines across the screen, the gray is your average recordings day by day from 2000 through 2022. So 23 years worth of climatological data. And so that gray is what is the average for those 23 years period of time. The blue is the current year. The red are the maximum recorded values on this graph. Next graph you'll see are the minimum recorded values, but basically the record-setting events. And so as you saw, and I'm sorry, one last one is the green that probably doesn't come through super clear on your screen, but is a new addition this year, which is a 7-day forecast for those values. So I have found that it tends to be more focused on worst case scenario rather than the trend, but that's neither here nor there. The important part, and let's see if I can get in there, maybe not. The green, the blue, you can see that we just barely touched or met the maximum recorded value back right around the start of the point fire.
Just spilled it all over them.
Can you hear me okay? Okay, sorry, Jason. So maximum recorded values. So that's the important part. So the next thing that I want to talk about as we're going through this is that this new graph, if you go on to the NorthOps webpage, actually has kind of a breakdown of what this graph means. But basically, the conversation on that graph is that range between the 60th and the 80th percentile is the area identified to be the most conducive for prescribed fire operations. So in a normal year, we would expect to see a period of time basically between early June to mid-July for that percentiles between the 60th and 80th percentiles. This year, we were behind the average scale right up until mid-May, when we entered into that period of time. So we have been doing our utmost to get all the prescribed burning, the proactive prescribed burning done before peak fire season occurred. And as you can see, and as Brooke alluded to, obviously right now our resources are spread across the state fighting fires. So while that's the preferred window, we anticipate continuing to burn as long as conditions allow, and we are trying to avoid the backside of fire season. So you'll notice that there's a blue block on the front side, and there's a blue block on the backside for those windows of opportunity in kind of that sweet spot on prescribed fire operations. And as everybody is well aware, what we run into in the fall is our offshore wind events that, you know, a week after a prescribed burn, especially to Fred's comments about large scale burns, we struggle with, you know, if we've got a 1,000+ acre prescribed burn, if we get winds a week after, that could be a bad thing. So at the end of the day, we're trying to get as much of our burning done on the front side of fire season as possible, so that we avoid not only those critical offshore wind events in the fall, but also the conflicts that we're running into with the agricultural concerns in the county about smoke taint. So just wanted to call that out, that basically average year we would be June through July this year, because of that uptick that we got with those early May winds. They weren't an offshore, but they were a period of strong gusty winds there that absolutely cured out those fuels much more rapidly than what we were on track to do. So the wind is going to be the big thing that we talk about today. In that, so we entered into that period of time in mid-May, and as you can see, right around the time of the point fire was when we edged out of that 80%. And again, it's not that we can't burn after that, but now, you know, we have more intense fire behavior, so we might not be meeting some of the management objectives for the burn that we're trying to conduct. Next slide. So the next slide is the 1,000-hour fuels. So again, these are the minimum values rather than the maximum on the energy release component. And this is for our zones. So this is the Mid-Coast to Mendocino zone, Predictive Services Area 2. And so as we saw in the ERCs, we had the same thing with those 1,000-hour fuels, was we were doing great right up until those winds showed up in May. And so that has taken us down into below average. And more recently, again, right around the ignition date of the point, now we're flirting with those minimum recorded values for the last 23 years. So the last 4-month outlook that came down from North Ops up in Redding, that is our geographic area coordination center, had some very pointed points that they made in that document, available to all. If you type in NOPS GACC, short for North Ops GAC, these documents are available at that location. But the highlights that they put was that we were below average for large damaging fires June through July, and then back to an average for the remainder of fire season. When we talk about average, the average is 1 to 3 large fires at any one point in time in the North Operations area. So while it's significant with the point and the sites that are currently going, that's 2 fires. So technically speaking, we're still at or below average of where we would be this time of the year. And as we've seen it, again, this was produced on June 1st. So this is over 2 weeks old. But at the time, their highlights for the next 4-month period of time was that we were going to see those timely, cool, moist intrusions over the next 2 to 3 months. And so we're still seeing that, right? We get a spike in heat, and then we get that onshore back on, and those temperatures come down. So ultimately, long term, that's helping moderate some of that extreme growth that we would have seen if it was just a constant oppressive heat / dry, windy period of time. I don't know about the slower start. We'll get more into that, but again, the important thing that they tied into about that was that because of that grass crop and the dry wind flows that we were going to see, that they were forecasting to see, it was going to provide heightened significant fire potential at times across Sacramento Valley and foothills. And so we just lived that, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later. And then also the gusty dry winds would be a factor across the northeast portion of California and the far east side PSA's predictive services areas. And that tied into the Arrow fire that just happened down in Tuolumne, Calaveras. So as we come into fire season, we're a whole bunch of green, which was moist. If you look at the legend on the far right-hand side of the screen, up until a couple of weeks ago, and now all of a sudden we're back into the full swing of fire season. And so the north region, with the exception of Humboldt and the immediate bay, are dry. And then by later this week, we're back into very dry. And it still kind of goes up and down based on the 7-day forecast. But this is where we live during peak fire season. So while we had a slower start to fire season, we are definitely in it now. And I was going to show you that. So today we're that mid coast, so that NC02. And so dry for the next 2 days. And then by Saturday, we're back into that higher rating, but then we dip back down. So those timely, cool, moist intrusions, it's showing you on that map that that's indeed occurring. So long-term through fire season, this is the NOAA forecast for the next 3 months, the next 90 days. And during that period of time, while the country is taking a hit, we here locally in Sonoma County are thankfully outside of those above average temperature opportunities and below average precipitation. But as we're all well aware, so average precipitation during summertime, we're not getting precipitation, right? So the precipitation right now isn't as critical as that temperature outlook that we're seeing there on the left. So a snapshot of where we're at right now. The top left, fires and acres this year, and that's for the whole Northern California portion of Cal Fire, 617 fires for 16,000 acres versus last year, 658 fires for 729 acres. So the takeaway is that we haven't had a necessarily extreme change in ignitions for fires. But again, that grass crop combined with those winds, and more so the grass crop and wind. So we talked about it that we anticipated running grass fires when those winds were blowing, but we were optimistic that the brush is taking on the most moisture that it's going to take on for the year right now. And the 1,000-hour fuels were in a state that we felt like those grass fires were going to hit the heavier fuels and slow down. So we'll speak a little bit more about that here shortly. But that's the takeaway on this graph, is that roughly the same amount of fires, but obviously a significant bump in acres. And then you'll notice that is obviously not as significant, that the acres are not reflected for what we're at on today. That was a report that was generated Monday morning in preparation for the week. Every Monday these numbers come out. So basically that's 16,000 acres. If you look at the activity report on the top right, that bottom totals for the fires, acres burned and fires, the corral fire at 14,000 and change was the driving force for that total of 16,000, because Monday morning or Sunday at midnight, Sonoma Lake Napa here, we had 94 fires for 450 acres, and that was the Crystal Fire and a handful of other fires that got us to that 450. I think probably part of that was the initial acres reported. We were at 300 ish reported for the Point Fire by the time this report would have been generated at the end of Sunday. So to that bottom right corner here in Sonoma Lake Napa, this time last year we were at 91 fires with 155 acres, and then this year 94 fires for 450 as of Sunday at midnight. So again, not a significant change in overall fire ignitions, but the fuel availability is what is driving those acres changed, and winds, right? So we had similar fuel issues last year, but this is that conversation about the wrong ignition, the wrong time under the wrong conditions, and so the wind component absolutely is driving the acres that we're seeing, because not only was the corral an issue for Santa Clara, burning across Interstate 5 on the far side of the fire, but I pulled screenshots of the 3 significant fires that we saw Sunday through Monday, I believe. Obviously, the top is the Point, 1,207 acres. The Arrow Fire was the fire in Tuolumne, Calaveras for 5,351, and the Sites Fire for 19,195 acres. So the Point is looking really good. The Arrow is basically out. It was a wind-driven fire through a grass oak woodland predominant fuel type. And the Sites Fire, as you can see, they're all oriented north. So our fire, the Point was a northwest, and also the Arrow was a northwest wind event driven fire. If you remember, though, the Arrow Fire was influenced by the red flag. So while the Point occurred at the same time, we weren't in those red flag conditions west of the Miacamas mountain range. Whereas the Lake County portion and farther east into the Central Valley, which is where the Sites Fire occurred up in Colusa County, were under those red flag conditions. So explosive fire growth when that fire ignited, tough topography to maneuver resources in, not a lot of road networks out there. And so that's why you saw that fire behave the way it did. Item of note, however, is that the point at the bottom of the map there is where the fire extended to, I believe, Monday. That fire kicked off Monday. So by Monday night, early Tuesday morning, that was where the Sites Fire got to. But yesterday, those winds came off that fire, and now the heel, the northernmost portion, that's why you have that more traditional softer shaped amoeba as that fire works its way through topography versus being driven by the wind. So the takeaway for these slides was I wanted to really highlight these wind driven fire events that we're having. I wasn't able to get a corral footprint for you, but I'm sure you guys have all seen that shot at this point. So here, just within 4 fires, you're somewhere over 40,000 acres by the time you're all said and done. So wind was predicted by the predictive services folks, and we're absolutely seeing those impacts. And so to that point, the Point Fire was the fire that took the wind out of our sails here locally. Was that the origin area, or where the fire first ignited off of Stewart's Point Skag Springs Road, was a grassy meadow, and it rapidly where we almost had it. You can see where ultimately it extended out, and there was some short range spotting that occurred to generate the the portion of fire over towards Division Alpha. So it ultimately ended up connecting together. But what we saw was that fire ran through the grass and just kept going once it got into the heavier fuels. Now, that was a strong component about the wind, because as I came up Dry Creek Road coming into the fire wasn't looking that impressive. But by the time I got there, within 20, 30 minutes, the wind had picked up and it was off to the races. So that's going to be our concern through the remainder of fire season, is that any wind at this point is going to create control issues for us, rather than just the offshore wind events that we're all too familiar with. And I just wanted to bring into, for comparison wise, what a non-wind driven fire looks like with the Walbridge fire, right? So a lightning ignition, massive fires across the state, so a resource drawdown, and so a combination of inaccessible terrain with a resource competition between all the different fires. Those non-wind driven fires have a much wider shape to them than what we just saw on that prior slide. And so Walbridge 2020, 55,000 acres. And that's what I was able to put together for you guys. I'm happy to answer any questions and or continue the conversation about things that you would like to talk about.
All right, thank you very much, Ben. That was a lot of good information. Are there any questions, either in the room or online? Do we have a source of the point fire yet?
Prevention is obviously engaged in the investigation. I know that there was concerns floating around out there that I'm sure you guys are all aware of. I can absolutely tell you that that is not the case, but I can't speak to the overall investigation. So to Fred's point, we have been conducting larger burns that we're very excited about, very optimistic that we're helping change conditions out there. There's a great success story that'll be coming out here post fire for some of the work that Northern Sonoma County and CAL FIRE were able to conduct some prescribed burns up at the top of Mountain View Ranch Road that the point fire burned into. So while it didn't save the day across the board, it's a great example of a wildfire running into a prescribed burn and allowing resources to be able to catch it as it became a lower intensity, slower moving fire.
Very cool. That's good. Brooke, you had your hand up.
Yeah, thank you, Ben. That's really great information. I'm glad this is being recorded. Do you have any information regarding, if we see these fires that are going, if they're contained and downgraded, are you going to be able to start up any prescribed fires that were kind of on the books? And also, do you have any information now that it looks like might be moving into July in terms of doing prescribed fire? Any interaction with vineyard managers?
So yes, we will be able to re-engage on prescribed fires once we get resources back on base and available after these fires are wrapped up. The sites is looking really good today. So by next week, we should be in a much better spot than we are today. And then as far as the vintner community, we had a good conversation. What was it? Probably about a month ago. The dialogue is open and going back and forth. And basically part of that conversation was driving that early season burn. So veraison is expected to take place in early July. And so the ask was whatever we could get done before that would be greatly appreciated. So that's what we're pushing for, to try to get that taken care of.
Go ahead, Fred.
two things. It sounds like the prescribed burn was the best possible thing for that to hit. Were there any other fire control measures in place that it bumped up against?
Sure. So there's some great shots, and the information officers for the unit are going to be putting together some more information, both probably video and photos. But the suppression op, the additional functions that took place was that area was hit with retardant, so it bumped that during the daytime because the aircraft hit that with retardant. And then there was a hand line put down through the burn to basically put line around that fire. So I'm not sure what came first, whether or not it was still active fire when the hand line was put in, or if it had been checked up by the retardant and then followed up with the hand line. But we'll be working on that.
Good, because a lot of what we talk about is prevention methods that people can take. And for instance, that prescribed burn is a really good example of what we're talking about. And second and last, does CAL FIRE have any approach to rehabilitation of this area, or is that not in your purview?
The rehab that will be taking place is the suppression and repair for the bulldozer line. So that is actively ongoing today. But just that's basically preventing erosion from those dozer lines. So it's water bars and making it so that it won't create excessive erosion. But as far as replanting or reseeding, that's not on the plan. But one item of note is I was able to take a flight. Oh, I think it was Tuesday, and I'll work on trying to memorialize the pictures I got while I was up there. But you know, the areas that saw the most extreme fire behavior were a brush fuel model, kind of a brush broadleaf fuel model. And where it got into the timber and specifically redwoods, most of those areas were a much lower intensity burn, and the canopy is still intact. So there is some hope on those heavier fuels that they still do have more moisture than the surrounding areas. But you know, shades of the wall bridge, the entire footprint of the point is not a moonscape. That it's got some good understory removal of fuels that otherwise wouldn't have been conducted.
Yeah, it was hard to look at that picture of the wall bridge, but one of the problems we have there now is that there's been essentially no restoration or action, and it's just ready for a second burn, you know, as all those hardwoods fall down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's absolutely a great point, Fred, and we're tracking. And we would like to see it. We just have to have the environmental compliance to go with it. That, you know, in a perfect world, 3 to 5 years is really the window where we really need to get back into those burned areas to address that deadened down and or the invasives that are coming in. You know, we went and looked at the new Mark West Regional Park a while back. And it is going to be a heavy lift to reset that so that we don't have another stand replacing fire here in the near future between the brush component with the standing and dead and down component. Major fuel issue to try to put fire back on the landscape.
Jason, can you go online to ask that question, or do you want me to read it? His question was, curious if CAL FIRE was able to establish decontamination cleanup stations for equipment working on the fire to prevent invasive species from moving into the dozer lines.
No decon areas.
Okay. Any other questions from the room? All right, Ben, you're allowed to go back to the fire line and start digging.
All right.
Thank
well,
you.
thanks for
Thank you.
having me, and
We
Thanks,
greatly
Ben.
appreciate it.
take care.
All right, have a good day. All right, so, Adriana, do you want to pull up our agenda again, please?
Yeah, we can. I don't know if anyone wants to take a few minutes just to discuss any portion of his presentation before we move on. I feel like this is such a juicy one.
I think we're very fortunate to have Ben and Marshall so willing to come and join us to be able to give these updates. This has become a tradition to be able to speak about what our fire conditions are. We greatly appreciate that. But also, this is kind of timely because we did have an event here in the county, and there's a fair amount of PTSD in this, in this room, on the screen, and it's always good to be able to have, I mean, to me, the moment that the Forest Working Group hit its stride was post-fire in 2017. And it became a moment where we were able to sit in a room and all emotions were out on the table, and it was just really quite therapeutic for a lot of people who went through this. And it's really Adriana and I had spoken about this. It's like this is a good time to really kind of reflect on anything that people are going through. This is a good moment for folks to be able to share kind of like what their experience was when they saw the amount of fires coming out. Judy.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on that. I live on Creighton Ridge and was there for the Creighton Ridge fire. Our house was the first one to burn down in that fire. And when I looked off my deck and I saw the smoke to the east, both my husband and I realized we had this like anxiety attack. All of a sudden I felt my, just my anxiety level just rise. And it wasn't so much about Creighton Ridge, but it was, you had Creighton Ridge, you had Wildbridge, you had Myers, and how many times I evacuated out of there. And so seeing this fire really hit home, but also made me realize the importance of all the work we're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got to just continue.
Yeah, I was in a meeting earlier this week with Permit Sonoma, and the comment was made that firefighters were recognizing homes that had done their defensible space. And so to me, that's a huge factor for us to call as a win, where things are being done. People are taking the time to protect their homes. And that's really a big factor. And kudos to Fire Safe Sonoma and Carleone, who's been waving that flag for 25 years. And we really appreciate all the work that they do. And that was something that really was raised in our Guerneville event on June 9th, where we have this warped sense of reality where landscape treatments, and I'm fully accepting that role of landscape challenges and treatments are the kind of the sexier beast to think of these large scale projects. But we got to remember that home out part of it is absolutely essential. The science tells us that that's where it all has to be done, because that's where embers are stopped if that's done correctly on the defensible space and the home hardening. And that message doesn't always get absorbed by the general public. So while we are the Forest Conservation Working Group, we think about these forests and landscapes, the forest health, but it's something that we should all take ownership in advocating for home hardening and defensible space as part of the whole equation that we as a society kind of sometimes need to blame somebody for a wildfire event. And so that's kind of tends to happen, but I appreciate that comment too, that we are doing something, we're being proactive. And I think your comment earlier about being able to share our story, what we've done here in the county, and this is a huge team effort. And I think that's probably the glory of it. So.
And just real quick too, Kim, on that, when we did the presentation up at the Jenner Headlands, I realized too that all of us there, we are all of the presenters. We are the forest working group. You know, I mean,
For
every
sure.
single one of us.
Yeah.
And now I love the idea of bringing Anthony in more. I
Yeah,
love
right.
him.
Oh, good, yeah.
We want to talk to him about some cultural burns.
Nice.
But you know, we are the forest working group. We're the people
Yeah.
who are bringing people together.
Very
And,
nice.
and I think I would love to share that with some of the other work that's being done out there in the northern counties.
Yeah, Fred often likes to bust my chops and says, hey, we're doing community forest now. That's
We are.
when I was, you know, a rookie coming into a working group in ag and open space back in 2005. We were talking about how this, you know, how can we do this more of a community effort? It's like, I think we're getting there. We're getting there quickly. So Fred, or Ben, you have your hand up. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that defensible space was definitely a key factor in some of the loss that we just experienced on the point, as well as something that Judy kind of alluded to that I wanted to really hit with the crowd and figure out how we continue to message that we're hope maybe the point put it back on people's radars, but I've heard multiple conversations here in the last couple of weeks, especially post Cooley and post Half a Canoe, that people were traumatized and upset about the smoke that resulted from those two burns. And those two burns, a little over 1,000 acres, which for us is a huge milestone in where we're at with operations here in the division and ultimately across the unit. That I think you guys have heard that, you know, last year across the unit we burned proactively 1,600 approximately 1,600 acres, and in just two burns in this division, this county, we were able to burn over 1,000 acres. So doing some rough math, and it's not a fine tooth comb, but you know, there's roughly 740,000 acres of state responsibility area land here in the county. And so doing some quick math, just using an easy 700,000, if we put fire on every square foot of that acreage, with a 25-year return interval, which depending on what fuel types or vegetation types we're talking about, that's still not acceptable. But a 25-year return rate, we would need to burn 28,000 acres a year. So how we maintain the momentum we have and ultimately grow it without the angst that comes from those burns. I mean, there's been a lot of discussion. There's been people that are concerned about the Half a Canoe, you know, being an issue for fire spread, and that's absolutely not the case, right? The burn was successfully completed, and I encourage the group to go out, because that's public land, and then look at the ultimate footprint of that fire, because it's you know, smoke cleared that afternoon and it did exactly what it was supposed to do. The grass understory brush component burned out, and the mature oaks are left standing and ready for the next fire. So we absolutely have to figure out how to continue building that public trust and comfort with that good fire smoke coming up into the air.
Yeah, thank you very much for that comment, Ben. And you know, for Ben, Brooke, Adriana, and Rose and I, Judy, we were out at an event on June 8th out at Jenner Headlands, and Marshall was able to conduct a prescribed burn of 2 acres. And we were literally having our discussion right at the edge of the fire. And it was such a relaxing moment where people are getting a little bit of dust, or I mean, smoke in your eyes, but it's like, we got this, you know, and this is the type of thing. Unfortunately, it was less oriented towards landowners versus a lot of different agencies and people who are in this business. But it was just like, that's the level of comfort we got to get to, where we have these instructive moments, we have these educational opportunities where we have people on a fire and learning from the fire experts that this is really how fires should behave instead of something that we are all running from. So I appreciate that comment, Ben, and we'll try to continue to resolve this issue.
I'd
So,
like to just add to that, Kim, I was really surprised also how many people, I know there were a lot, but there were enough people who had never witnessed a fire
all
before.
right,
And that was surprising to me, you know, because we take for granted the work that we're doing here and that there are people out there who this is new. And I think, you know, we've had a number of forest stewardship workshops where we've had Sasha Berlman, we've had Marshall, we have had a number of people talk about prescribed fire, but you just can't compare that to being on the fire and having someone like Marshall or Ben or anyone, you know, explain how that fire works and how the weather contributes and how, you know, the perimeter line. I mean, you knew standing there that that fire was not gonna get out of control.
Right.
And I think that that was important for people to hear while seeing it.
absolutely, yeah.
I think that that just speaks, Judy, to the importance of education at all different levels, right? So
Mhm.
Kim, going back to your example of having this working group, you joining it in 2005, there are many people who are very aware of the importance of this work, what's going on and where and why. But I think that the reality is that not everybody is there, and there's some that are still starting at step one. So education at very different levels needs to all happen at once based on who you're speaking to, which is good, and we get that, and it's challenging too, to be able to meet the needs wherever those folks are at and the resources that are most applicable. I think about Sonoma Ecology Center's Tending the Lands product that they're coming out as a really great way of getting to introduce these types of concepts to landowners and to other folks who are just learning for the very first time. But that it needs to continue to be relevant and dynamic for the folks who have been engaged for a while too.
Absolutely, yeah, that's great, thank you. Yeah, go ahead, Brooke.
Oh yeah, I just wanted to talk about some of the tools, you know, as we move into peak fire season. People often ask, you know, where are we in the fire season? How dry is it out there? All that stuff. That graph that Ben was able to pull up, the energy release component, really is interesting in that you can see where the value actually hit the maximum value, and all of a sudden, all of these fires started everywhere. We had the Point Fire, we had a fire in our Taylor Regional Park, as well as other fire starts throughout the county. And it's really interesting. You can see those lines, and once they start to come together, it's a good indicator that we should all kind of be on our toes, that we should really be watching whatever we're watching, our different websites and stuff like that. But looking at that snapshot, it really gives us an idea of, you know, how dry is it out there this week, and are we at that peak kind of, you know, fire season or fire start conditions, or has that marine layer come in and we're dropped down to like the average? I tend to look at that graph often, and it kind of gives me a gauge of like week to week, where are we and how vigilant do I need to be today in terms of, are we going to have a bunch of starts? Do I need to be looking at the fire cameras and stuff like that? Or can I kind of take a more relaxed approach and enjoy taking the weekend off?
Nice, yeah, for sure, that's a good plan. All right, I think we should check out our agenda, Adriana, and I think one of the discussions we wanted to have with you is two things. That was a picnic, a field trip where we get a chance to see people in person and make it a kind of an educational opportunity as well. So that's number 2 on our agenda. Thinking about a short agenda where it could be a potluck type of situation. We can either visit a property where treatments have gone on and make it educational. It could be a prescribed burn if that works, timing wise. Those are always difficult to schedule. But we wanted to kind of get some input from folks to see whether that people are up for that. Finding the right location where the critical mass can get there easily. Those are the types of things that we wanted to raise. But we just wanted to kind of gauge the interest level for most people, to be able to take a couple extra hours to be able to travel to the venue and hang out and learn from a colleague or something like that.
One of the things that we've been talking about, and maybe we can combine, you know, I know it's hard to get people up the coast, but we were gonna talk to Fort Ross Vineyard about doing a gathering there, bringing people out to the Sonoma coast where we work, having them host the event where we can all kind of socialize and not have it be a meeting so much, but just a social gathering.
Nice.
We might be able to combine something like that.
Uh-huh.
Because it's easy on and off Highway 1, it's
Right.
not up those dirt roads. Something to think about.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think the idea is just to kind of have a brainstorm on what locations really kind of nail it for everyone. Timing is always a big thing. We tend to have a little bit lower attendance in June and July and sometimes in August. So maybe look at the fall, as long as things aren't on fire, we'd have a better excursion outside. So what are some of the other places people like to visit? Anyone? I have a ton of open space properties that we could visit, and I have the keys. So we're welcome to visit those sites. Saddle Mountain is the one that always registers for me because there's a lot of good work going on there. There was a prescribed burn scheduled for today up there, but the dogs who called us in.
Well, you know, Luke and Ryan would love to have us all up at the General Headlands too.
Yeah, right. We just had that conversation with Ryan today about the opportunities to use it as an educational source for everyone. Yeah. Brooke,
Yeah, and
Montebrio.
yeah, similarly, you know, we could have the gathering at any of our regional parks, like Mark West, you know, parks that have been hit by a wildfire, and we can kind of see, you know, what does it look like several years after, and thoughts on what we should be doing. So if there's any regional park that's either open to the public or not open yet, obviously we can go out there and take a look at things.
That sounds good. Yeah. I think we would probably stick to like carpooling to get to a certain venue, and there's a little bit of logistics plan. So we want to kind of get the conversation going now, gauge interests and carry it out. So good. Adriana, do you have anything else you wanted to add?
Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about, you know, this whole conversation about community education around fire resilience. I think there's a huge amount of interest in that right now. Sorry if you can hear the background noise. Someone is working in the apartment above me really loudly. But I'm just thinking about, yeah, kind of taking this moment to take people's attention, and I wonder if there's a way we could have an event. So not necessarily this picnic, but a future event where we invite people to just kind of like look at and talk with us and CAL FIRE about the strategy for moving forward, and not make it too wonky, but make it just really like, here's what we need to do as a community. I don't know, I think people could be interested in something like that. So I thought I had is that maybe this picnic could be like a chance for us to go and suss out a location, talk about an agenda and what we would want to do, and then come back later with the public and do the whole event. That was the only other kind of add-on I had, but I liked all these ideas about going to regional parks to Mark West or going back to Jenner. Fort Ross Vineyard sounds kind of a little far from the county center, but I think that would be an awesome thing for us to do anyway. I would love to go and do that. So all good ideas.
I'd like to throw in Pepperwood, which
Yeah, of course.
active burning and has facilities and parking.
Yeah, right. That's a good suggestion.
Fred, yours is much better than mine. I was going to throw out the half a canoe that's right off a rock pile road with a large parking area and a bird's eye view of the burn unit, but that Pepperwood gets you right into it.
Right.
Yeah, and it's got 3 different burn type scenarios. I mean, it was burned twice, big trees burned, small stuff burned, serpentine area burned, and they're still doing active burning and grazing on it. So it's got a lot of the stuff we're looking at.
And the results of their pile burning as well, and reseeding those sites.
And the underburning of Doug fir on oaks, which of course we can see a lot of places. Anyway, it's just an idea. Keep going.
That sounds good. Thank you.
Hey, Ken.
Well,
Yes.
about,
Oh.
what I
Adriana,
just
I'm just gonna support your idea of, I took one of the JC classes on fire last year, and Fire Forward came, and we've been studying it for months, and then once we got the burn torches in our hand and you realize how safe it was.
Yeah.
And it was just really a shift from talking about it and really being pretty intimate with the trainings, and then just holding it. And if we could get even our working group doing it, it's like a 30-second brain opener.
Right.
And then you realize that the Fire Forward folks are super safe and they love burning,
Yeah.
you know, and you're like, oh, now I see why.
Yeah, right.
So it's just, it's a cool idea, Adriana. So.
Yeah, that's good. Adriana, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, about the Half a Canoe property, like, yeah, maybe that's the perfect place, and we could engage the Lake Sonoma community in particular after this, after the Point Fire has wrapped up. Maybe that's the right community to go and work with, and then we could open it up to anyone who wants to join, because I think everyone's been concerned about the Point Fire, and but it could be even more like tailored to the Lake Sonoma community.
And the next topic on our agenda is Cooley Ranch, which I had the pleasure of joining Ben and Marshall on that burn. And that was taking it at scale. 775 acres is pretty significant, and it was really well done. It was a little bit earlier in the season, so there's a fair amount of moisture still on the material. So it didn't light as well as it hoped, but it was still accomplishing Marshall's goals as far as trying to achieve a mosaic of burn conditions. And so that would certainly be a good education. Mr. Cooley has been pretty amenable to serving as an educational tool, and we can pursue that. It is a pretty good haul. It's about an hour and 15 to get up there. So that's a pretty big commitment for maybe a half-day excursion out there. That was a proposal that Lynn Garrett had suggested as far as hearing a lot about that fire and trying to get people out there. Cool. Anybody have any comments on that? Is there a fair amount of interest in doing that tour?
I think I'd go out there.
Yeah,
Used to driving.
yeah, right. How about those on the screen? Are they interested?
I would be very interested in it, but we start putting a lot of these things together, and we start ending up with a lot of dates. Cooley Ranch takes 3 hours just to get in it.
Yeah, right. The location of the burn was pretty accessible. Ben, do you have any comments on that?
Yeah, I was going to say that I think that Cooley is a great example, if not Half a Canoe, where again the fuels are the driver, right? So a lot of folks will have an idea of what that means when we're tipping the torches. That to your point, the mosaic burn is not a bad thing, right? We would have liked more consumption on the east side of the burn unit, but fire on that landscape help reduce some of the fine fuels even on that side of the burn unit, and a much different burn on the west aspect, obviously, that gets more of that sunlight and exposure to the sun during the course of the day. So great learning opportunity on what a scale project like that looks like based on the aspects of the areas that you're trying to burn.
Indeed, that was a great experience. All right, so Adriana had put upcoming trainings, and we were we were scratching our head about what exactly we were thinking there. But I think it was kind of folds back to the learning experience we had at Jenner, what, you know, experiencing the prescribed burn. So there's also fuels crew that are out there doing their thing. And so being able, I was out at Calistoga Road with the folks from Fire Safe Sonoma, Lynn Garrett and her group to celebrate the work that the CCMB did along Calistoga Road as a shaded fuel break. And so those types of experience where you're interacting with some crews. Jason was the ringleader of the crew. And so it was great to hear his perspective and how much he really appreciated that model. Those are always good to get out and see kind of what we're talking about when we're talking about these different treatments. Jason, do you have anything to comment about that?
Unmute, Jason.
Yeah, you need to unmute, buddy. Playing dad today.
Hey there,
Well,
guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Thank you.
Sorry, I'm on the road. It's been a great meeting. Thanks for having it, everybody. Yeah, that was a really successful roadside vegetation management project. I just loved it because it really encompassed a lot of different approaches, everything from forest thinning and prioritizing fir removal to shaded fuel break in the hardwoods and saving our overstory with the valley oaks and natural heritage, to addressing invasive plant species and defensible space around homes. So it was really the full spectrum of vegetation management done properly in a really important corridor there at Calistoga Road. So a big win for the county, and add in workforce development, training all the Corps members out there. And it was nice to see a roadside project done well. And thanks for all the support with it, everyone.
All right, thank you, Jason. Appreciate that. Adriana, is there anything else that we wanted to cover today?
No, I think that's great.
Okay, how about down the agenda below Ben? Let's see the last item. No. Oh yeah, so just highlighting. Go ahead, Adriana, if you want to introduce this.
Oh, yeah, no, just to say, so this agenda was put together a week ago, so some of these things have already passed, or maybe it was 2 weeks ago. But we have on June 23rd, there's gonna be a forest bathing walk hosted by Sonoma Ecology Center out at Sugarloaf Ridge. So that could be really nice and enjoyable way to get out. There's also an interesting webinar hosted by UC on the 17th of July about forestry and fuel profiles, which I think is really interesting because as we're talking about here, fuel modification is what we're doing when we do vegetation management. And those remaining fuels are what drives fire. So thinking about how fuels are modified as we do our work and what are the different fuel profiles in forests, I think is an interesting topic. So the person who's presenting here, I don't have his name, but he's a US Forest Service employee who's been doing a bunch of research on fuels, dynamics and fire behavior. So I think that'll be a good one. And it's just 45 minutes long. And then, yeah, Kim and I are always working on planning events. So we'll bring more of those to you when we have them. And as always, if you guys have events on your calendars, please send them to me and Rose and we will get them up onto the calendar.
So one of the things that we're working on right now, we don't have the date, but it's in July, it's coming up. We send out landowner surveys quarterly, asking our landowners in the region here, what are your areas of concern? What do you want to learn more about? And the top three, always is herbicide. You know, we have 2 subdivided branches, the CC and ours don't allow for herbicide, but we also have a lot of people, you know, that are not in an HOA. And so, Matt Green right now is talking to, I can't think of his first name, Frederickson, who's gonna be doing a talk up north in July. We're gonna either try to get him the day before or the day after. And you know, our job, we feel, is just to get the information out there, you know, give the people the tools that they can work with so that they can make informed choices.
Uh-huh.
And we are really looking at, maintenance of Fort Ross Road. Not all of that road is in, the ranch, you know, on private property, on the two ranches. There's quite a bit of it that's outside. And so we're looking at that maintenance plan right now where we might, you know, because the resprouts are just,
Yeah,
and so we want to attend to that. So that'll be coming up. I'd definitely like to get that on the calendar.
okay, good.
Sounds great.
All right, we cranked through this one today, Adriana.
Yeah, and I have to leave. This was
Yeah.
really good. I'm gonna be late.
I think that's a wrap, folks. I don't know if anybody has any other comments that they want to share. Next month, we have, I think the agenda is to focus on funding, but I'm not sure if we're
Oh.
confirmed on that.
Actually, that's a good one. So I think we moved that funding panel over to August. And
Okay,
July is open, so one thing I did want to talk to you all about, but I didn't put on the agenda, was what we want to do with the July agenda. And I was thinking that could be a good time for us to go and maybe take our meeting outside. Unless, I mean, Kim, you were talking about low attendance in July, so I don't know, but it's open for whatever you'd like to do with it.
let's do a little planning offline and maybe reach out to folks and get a sense of what types of things we have that we could talk about next month. And hopefully we get a critical mass. We'll send out the agenda.
Okay, well, does anyone have any ideas here now that you want to share? And then just because we have a few minutes left.
Thank you.
All right, thanks, Judy. All right, any topics for next month that people are really interested in hearing? Molly, do you want to present your master's thesis?
I don't even know where that thing is.
I know, right? I can chat with Blue Forest. It's kind of quick notification, but they're usually willing to give a short presentation. So see if that works. That'd be something more on finance, forest finance projects, the private investment that Andy was discussing. That might be better to do it a little bit later when we have a couple other things going on.
Yeah.
Sounds great.
Okay, all right, well, we'll continue to think about this outside of the meeting, and we'll just let us wrap up early this time.
All right, that sounds good. Thanks, folks, for attending online. Come on in, visit us. We'll talk to you soon, all right? You have a good one now.
All right, thanks, everyone.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Jason. Take care.